The year is 1914. Europe stands at the crossroads of history, perched between the old world and the new. At first glance, it seems a continent at peace, yet beneath this surface lies a world of tensions, rivalries, and insecurities. The delicate peace of the European powers was held together by a series of complex alliances, but it was fragile and destined to break. The major players were well known: the British Empire, a global titan with colonies around the world; France, its deep-rooted history in European politics and military prowess; Germany, a rising power with a booming industrial economy and military ambition; and Austro-Hungary, a decaying empire made up of diverse ethnic groups. Russia, though vast in territory, was struggling with internal unrest, while the Ottoman Empire was crumbling, no longer the force it once had been. The world had been on edge for decades, primarily due to imperialism. European powers scrambled to expand their empires in Africa, Asia, and beyond. This scramble created friction, as European nations competed for colonies, resources, and influence. The borders of empires were continually redrawn, and the increasing tension in the Balkans, the so-called powder keg of Europe, was just one example of how dangerous these rivalries could be. At the heart of Europe's uncertainty were the alliances. The two main blocs were the Triple Entente: France, Russia, and Britain. The Triple Alliance: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, although Italy would later switch sides. These alliances were not just about friendship, they were about self-preservation. Each country relied on its allies to avoid isolation in the face of any threat. For example, if Germany went to war, Austria-Hungary had its back, while France would aid Russia if Germany threatened its borders. Britain, in turn, was pledged to protect France in case of German aggression. This web of alliances, however, created a dangerous situation. A conflict between two countries could easily spiral into a world war if these alliances were triggered. The arms race further contributed to the powder keg. Throughout the early 1900s, European nations spent enormous sums of money on military development. Germany, in particular, built up its navy, challenging Britain's dominance of the seas. Britain, in turn, responded by expanding its own naval force. This competition wasn't just about power, it was about prestige. If one country fell behind militarily, it would risk being seen as weak, an unacceptable notion for any of these great powers. Meanwhile, at the very heart of Europe, Austria-Hungary was facing its own internal challenges. The empire was a mosaic of ethnic groups: Germans, Hungarians, Slavs, Italians, and more, all with their own cultural identities and political aspirations. Nationalism was on the rise, and many in these groups wanted independence or at least greater autonomy. The empire was struggling to keep itself together, and the leaders of Austria-Hungary feared that any spark could ignite the flames of revolution. This made them especially wary of external threats, particularly from Serbia, which had long supported the Slavic independence movements. At the same time, Russia, with its vast size and diverse population, was grappling with its own internal pressures. The Tsar, Nicholas II, had begun to lose the support of his people. Industrialization was slow, the peasantry was discontented, and the working class was increasingly radicalized. Yet, Russia was still a major player on the world stage, with ambitions to assert control in the Balkans and maintain influence over Slavic nations, particularly Serbia. The year 1914 saw the culmination of all these tensions. Europe was ready for a war, but no one could have predicted that the spark would come from the assassination of one man, in one small city, in a far corner of the continent. As the clock ticked towards summer, the world was standing on the edge of a precipice. Yet, despite the growing instability, many believed war could be avoided. Most leaders thought they could control the situation, right up until the moment it exploded into a global conflict. The world was about to change forever. The events that were set in motion that summer would transform Europe, and the world, into a landscape no one could have predicted. The stage was set, the actors were in place, and Europe's long-standing peace was about to shatter. To find out what happened next, click the red subscribe button and then click the bell icon to find out what happened next. Till then, goodbye.